Well, I'm very, very excited that we have with us today Maureen Taylor. Maureen goes by the moniker of the Photo Detective, and she is an internationally known expert on photo identification and preservation. She's been doing this for a lot of years. I remember being in California and seeing her. So she has traveled all over the world to make these presentations. She has a regular podcast that she broadcasts. She does Facebook Live events. She knows photographs, folks, and she's going to tell us about how even the tiniest details can reveal the biggest clues about a person, where they come from, and what they meant to their friends and their family, and even the world. So please join me in welcoming Maureen Taylor.
Thank you, everyone. I can't wait. Thank you very much to the Clayton Friends of the Library for sponsoring me, and the people at the Clayton as well. I'm going to actually get rid of my camera. Have you made me the presenter yet? Here we go. Thank you. Perfect. So I'm going to shut my camera off. You don't actually need to look at me. Everyone can hear me, I'm assuming. Okay, great. So this morning we are going to do the Photo Detective Roadshow, which I love doing. And what it means is many of the participants today have submitted photographs. They have questions about them. I weigh in on their questions and hopefully either solve the mystery or offer suggestions on how they can go about and solve them. Some of the people who submitted actually already know who's in the photo, which is even better because it helps us even further. And so let's jump in. I have a little bit of an introduction and then we go right to the photographs. And when your photograph appears on the screen, then someone will unmute you or you'll unmute yourself and talk about the picture, why you submitted it, what you know about it, what you want to know. And then we have a lot of pictures to look at. So this is just going to be really fun. All right, let's go. Here we go. So I call this my signature 5. These are the 5 questions that I start with when I look at every photo identification or interpretation problem. And the questions are multi-layered. So it's who's in the photo, who took the photo, who's not in the picture, what are they wearing, what are they doing, where was it taken, when was it taken? And sometimes when you answer all of these questions, you come up with a big reveal, which is the why they had this picture taken. Maybe it's a simple why, but maybe not. Sometimes things are hidden in our photographs. And you can deepen these questions by thinking about what you know about the people in your family already. What family stories are there? What about genealogy research? You're all genealogists, but when I lecture before public library, just general public library audiences who don't consider themselves genealogists, they don't have that background research to help with. And many of my clients now are coming to me with these photo mysteries, and they haven't done any genealogy research. So I sort of have to start from square one with them, introducing the pedigree chart and how they get started, and lead them a little bit down the path about how to solve these things. You can ask your family, and maybe you're saying you don't have any family to ask, but in fact, you can network with the family that you meet through your DNA matches. You can network with the family you meet through Ancestry or WikiTree or Family Search, that they have matches on the tree that match yours. You go, we're going to talk about exactly how you do all of that. And then you research all the photo evidence, from what they're wearing to what they're doing to what's in the picture, and then what's outside the frame, because often the answers are not within the clues of the image, but in your research. And then by all means, every time you have a caption, make sure that it's correct, because you don't know who wrote that caption. You just know that the caption is there. This is one of my favorite photographs that I love, love, love to use as an example. It's from the Library of Congress, and we know who everyone is. Emlyn Cresson is in the back, and then his mother, Sarah Emlyn Cresson, is on the left. His wife, Priscilla Pritchett Cresson, is in the middle, and his mother-in-law, Mrs. Edith Hatton Pritchett, is on the right. And what do we know about these people from this photograph? Well, we actually know a lot. Sure, we have their names and we can research them. And we know that Mrs. Cresson, the elder, is in fact a Quaker. This was taken in Philadelphia. We know that Priscilla's mother on the right may be a Quaker, but she's not following the strict Quaker dress. She's just very conservative. We know that Emlyn must be very well off. He's dressed the part, and you can easily research him and discover that, in fact, they were extraordinarily wealthy, as evidenced by his wife Priscilla in the middle, who is not dressed in Quaker dress, nor is she conservative. She has jewelry, a pin, a necklace. She's had her hair professionally curled for this image. She has a fur stole. She has a purse. She has fingerless gloves and a beautiful silk striped dress. I mean, everything about her says, I am a rich young woman. Now, there's even a date on this photograph. It says March 1844. So 1844 is great. It's a great image. This is definitely the early 1840s based on the mat of this daguerreotype. Daguerreotypes begin in about 1839, 1840. And so this is really early in the daguerreotype period. There were beautiful, wonderful studios in Philadelphia in the early 1840s. But what doesn't make sense about this March 1844 image is by this time, this couple would have had a baby. And there's no baby in this image. And maybe they didn't want to bring the baby in because it would move and blur. But why else would they have this picture taken with the mother and the mother-in-law and the two of them? And why is Priscilla so dressed up? Perhaps whoever labeled this image, and we do not know who labeled it, meant to label it with the year that they were married. This more looks like a wedding photo than anything else. And I particularly love the fact that given the choice of leaning towards her mother-in-law or her mother, Priscilla has gone towards her mother. I'm assuming that the elder Mrs. Cresson frowned upon her daughter's materialistic ways, but we don't know. And one of the things you have to consider when you're looking at your family photographs is who owned it before you, who owned it before them, and when was it created? So in the Cressons, we know it was created in the early 1840s, and that's a lot of years between now and then, and many generations. So if you can track it back, because if you don't do that, you can end up thinking that this photograph comes from one branch of your family when in fact it comes from the other side of the family. And some of the things we look at are, we have the photograph, we look at the ownership of the image, the type of photograph that it is, the photographer and who took it, and you treat them like members of your family, the fashion clues, and anything else we can see in or out of that photograph, and add it all up and come up with a theory, and then you have to prove it. I would like to say that throughout the 19th and into the 20th century, that there were many different types of photographs. There are, of course, daguerreotypists, and that used to be called sitting for your likeness. There were ambrotypes and tintypes, which are very similar in composition, except one's on glass and looks like a negative. That's the ambrotype. And a tintype is on iron plate. So a daguerreotype, 1839 to about 1865. An ambrotype, 1854 to about 1870. A tintype is patented in 1856, and they are still available even today. And then paper prints, which debut a little bit earlier than I used to think. I've been doing some extra research into early photography, paper photographs in this country, and they were available as of about 1854. So all of that comes into play when you're looking at your family photographs. And I like to start with the format because that generally is the easiest part of the question. So first up is Annette Bowen. And Annette, you sent this image in. Is Annette here? Annette? Can anyone hear Annette?
No, we cannot. I just promoted her to panelist, and her microphone is not green.
No, there's no
Wait,
microphone.
here she is. Here she is. Annette, can you hear us?
Okay, I'm here.
Oh, great, Annette. So nice to
Yes,
meet
I
you.
sent this in. Nita Limerick was my mother's aunt, and she was born in 1862. My grandmother was born 21 years later. So she was the oldest child. She was already married when my grandmother was born.
Okay. And so you actually, there's a name on the back, which is Juanita Limerick. And you said that she was born in 1862 and dies in 1936. And that you had done some research on the photographer and that you estimated the date as about 1879
Yes.
based on the website that you found. And you should always, like Annette did, Google the photographer. And then one of the things you can look at, Annette, is on the back of this image, it says, we'll remove to a new gallery. You can't see the first part, at 918 Olive Street on or about the September 1st. So the city directories would be very helpful in trying to pin down exactly when the photographer was going to move and what year. I'm assuming that you did that based on that website. And 1879 is a great date for this. So what do we see in an 1879 photograph? Well, the back, of course, is this light green. It was very, very common to have different color cardstocks. This is a small card photograph, not quite the size of a cabinet card, but not necessarily as small as a little carte de visite. She is dressed very well with a typical late 1870s outfit with this is called a polonaise, which is the bodice that extends past her hip, the little striped tie around her neck, the multi-layers to her dress with the scallop trim, the fake rocks in the photographer's studio, her little hat. It's all pretty typical. And you can see on the back of her that she has a bustle, a very small bustle. And on the top of her head, she has put all of her hair up in a bun on the top of her head. This is, she looks like she might be blonde. Her hair is quite light colored. And I would not be surprised. Do we know when she gets married, Annette?
I believe it was I believe it was 1881. She
Well,
was
then-
not married here, but she married a couple of years later.
Okay. Well, based on her
It was
attire,
not a wedding picture.
excuse me. Okay. So based on her attire, she is fairly well off. Her family has some means. The more fabric in a dress, the generally more money in the family because the dresses cost more money. Now, what's interesting here, this would be actually not outside the realm of possibility to be a wedding dress. Not all brides were married in white in this period. And she actually has a long train on the back of this photograph, which is a bit unusual for just wearing it out on the street, because she would drag that behind her. Generally, you see these bustles, but they don't come quite down this far. I don't know if you can see my, whoops, come on. It's my mouse. If you can see, this is all of her train down here at the bottom on the left. Next up is Carolyn. Mouse. Oh my goodness, it has a mind of its own. Carolyn Simic. Are you here, Carolyn?
I'm here, but I don't think you can hear me.
I can hear you.
Oh, well, surprise.
So
That's
what do you know about this photograph and what's your question?
Well, I think it is a woman named Sarah, who is my great grandmother's mother. This Sarah was born in 1816 and died in 1901 in Terre Haute, Indiana. But she was born in Pennsylvania. And when her daughter, my great grandmother, Elizabeth Johnson, got married to a Southerner, John Henry Ivy, who was from Louisiana and Texas. They all lived in Wilmington, Delaware. But by 1860, when they'd been married 3 years, they were in Nashville, Tennessee, both families. Sarah had first been married to Ole Johnson, who died after 1840. And she then married James Simmons. So the Simmons family, she had 2 Simmons daughters, and besides her Elizabeth Johnson daughter, she had a son, William Johnson. They were all in Nashville, Tennessee in 1860. But the next year, the war hit. So the Northerners from Pennsylvania went up to Terre Haute, Indiana. The Southerners, John Ivy, went back to Houston, Texas, where he'd been on the 1850 census. I don't know for positive that this is Sarah. I'm assuming it's Sarah. On the back, it says, gosh, I can't think of what's on the back.
You had mentioned that it says Todd Morden
That's
and
right.
Crescent City. And it's unclear to me if you meant Todd Morden as the name of the photographer.
Well,
And
that's just what's printed on the back. I don't know any more than that.
okay. So Crescent City is interesting. I've done some Googling around trying to find something about Crescent City. And there's a Crescent City, California. There's appears to be a Crescent City in Tennessee. Lots of references to Crescent City in Tennessee, but no particular location associated with it. So we're going to assume that this was taken in Nashville, Tennessee. Now, the question I have for you is, if this is Sarah and she was born in 1816, and this photograph dates from the early 1860s, excuse me, 1860s, then she would only be about 44 years old in this photograph.
Yes.
So do we think she could be older than 44?
Well, let's see. She was born in 16, so in 60, she would be what? 44?
If she was born in 1816 and this is 1860-ish, she'd be 44. I'm actually thinking this photograph, now she dies, when did you say?
She died in 1901.
I think this is later in the 1860s, like 1865 or so. And then like right after the war. And so she'd be about 49, 50, which would make more sense for this. She's, this little carte de visite is pretty typical for the time period. She is posed with a table, no backdrop, with this might be a little curtain over on the side. And then her big full sleeves gathered at the wrist are more likely from about 1865. She's got a, oh, Jesus, mouse, excuse me. You told me, did somebody die living with her husband, John? There is, she is wearing a dark colored day cap on her head, which could be black, could be navy, could be a symbol of some sort of mourning or not. It's hard to know what the color might be. So then I would look at the family tree and see if she lost anyone in that period. She is wearing sort of typical clothing for the period. She's not particularly fashionable. She's an older woman, and there were quite strict rules about what you wore at what age. She doesn't even have a crinoline under her hoop under her dress. She is just wearing layers of petticoats, which are pretty typical for an older woman. So do you have any more questions for me, Carolyn?
No, that's it.
She could be. It's possible if we make it about 1865-ish.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Where did you get the photograph from? Oh, I see. You got it from your Elizabeth Johnson Ivy, the daughter.
Yes. It was
Makes
from
sense.
her Ivy photo album.
Is David Moyer in the house?
How's this? Can you hear?
I can hear you. So why don't you
Okay.
tell us a little bit about this photograph?
Let's give this a try. The question we're asking is the relationship between the seated woman and the gentleman there. The woman is Sarah Margaret Johnson, and we know that we have an album, a rather large album, that was handed down. What we're trying to understand is the timing of this photo to try and get a better handle if the man standing might be her husband, although there looks like a disparity in age, or if it might be her husband, and it would be a function of, was the photo taken before or after 1894? So this woman's husband, his name is Delos Velos Larkin, and he died in 1894. He had served in the Civil War and all that. She was born in 1838, and she died in 1903. So we're thinking that if it's in the 1870s and 80s, their two sons would be, this wouldn't be a son because the sons would have been too young. But if it was late 1890s, it's possible that it might be her son. So does that set the stage?
It does. It does set the stage, and it's a little confusing. She looks older in this image, right? A lot older than he is. I can't make out what she's sitting in. Do you know what she's sitting in? Is that a wicker chair or a...
We can't tell from the photo.
It's a poor photo.
This looks like a late 1880s image to me.
Okay,
Well, her
so
clothing anyway is late 1880s. Whether or not she wore it into the 1890s or not is another matter. Probably a best dress. It looks like it has some trim on it. It's very simple. There's nothing elaborate about it. And if so, let's say it was taken about 1888. How old are her sons then?
if it's 1888, then she would be 50 years old, and her sons would be, let me do the math.
So you got one born in 18, so one would be 27, and one would be 22. So this could be the older son at 27. He just looks older.
Okay.
It's possible. I don't think it's her husband. That doesn't make any sense to me.
Anything about his dress, as far as his suit, that places that in the time frame?
No, his suit is pretty standard off the rack suit. It doesn't have a whole lot going for it. The shawl collared vest is a little bit wider collared, lapelled than I like to see in the late 1880s, but we don't know how long he's had the suit. We don't know if it's, there was a, they're not particularly wealthy or well-to-do, like shopkeepers or anything, so they don't necessarily need to keep up with the current fashion. I don't know what their sons did for a living. If this were her husband, he's born in 1826. If this is 1888, he'd be 62.
And they were a farming family.
Yeah, but she looks so much older than him.
Well, that was our first inclination. Anything about his hat that he's wearing?
His hat is a pretty typical wide-brimmed workman's hat. Where were they living at the time?
It should be Ohio, Central Ohio.
Yeah, just a standard nondescript hat, nothing particular about it. What's interesting is he's not even, if it were late 1880s, he could be wearing a bowler hat, but he's not. He's wearing like a worker's cap. Like, this guy is a conservative dresser. He has a watch.
Okay, a bowler's cap.
Just a wide-brimmed, sort of Western style hat, something to keep him keep his face out of the sun. It's not stylish in any way. It's functional.
Okay. Can you think of anything else that I have asked? Okay.
And so,
well, thank you very much.
The reason I think it's late 1880s is she's got this bodice that looks like a jacket, and then a narrow skirt, or not too narrow, but just a plain skirt. Again, their clothing is very simple.
Any chance this might be a funeral dress, that there was a funeral and they just happened to want to take a picture?
Well, that's hard to say. Most people didn't, unless it was a direct, really close relative, you didn't necessarily have to dress in black. And then these people look like they have going to church clothes and work clothes, but they don't necessarily look like they have extra clothes. They're not going to go out and buy a new funeral suit. So, I mean, it's possible, of course. We have no idea what color she's wearing. She could be wearing a rust colored. She could be wearing a dark navy. She could even be wearing black. Black was actually fashionable in this period, other than for mourning. Hard to know. That part is hard to know.
And back then, did women wear rings on their left? They're married.
Some did, some didn't.
I think they were very, very simple broomcorn farmers.
Yeah, they're very simple,
land
very plain people.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much.
Sure. Elsa, actually, I think maybe having some trouble with her. Elsa, I just love this image because there's so much going on in it. Elsa would like to know the approximate year and decade the photo was taken, what photographic method was used, and the woman's face seems like it was painted onto the picture. Do you think the couple in the picture was a younger version? Oh, I only shared one of your images, Elsa. I didn't realize you wanted me to compare them. I can talk about this image though. And so who do you, does anybody know how to communicate with Elsa? She doesn't have a microphone.
I've given her, this is Susan Ball. I've given her my phone number and I'm hoping she'll call.
Okay. If not, I can talk about this image without her on the line. Would you want me to do that?
Yeah, go ahead and start and I'll see if I can get a hold of her elsewhere.
Okay. So she had a lot of questions about this, as she put in the chat, but I will tell you that this picture is a composite, so that it is a crayon portrait, meaning there are photographs in this picture, but they are also outlined, enhanced with charcoal on a picture. This was the kind of thing that you would frame. It is a composite of two different photographs brought together to have it look like a husband and a wife in the same image.
Hey, Maureen?
Yes.
I do have Elsa. We're going to try to do this via phone, okay?
Okay, great.
Okay, Elsa?
Oh, yes. Can you hear me?
Remarkably, we can.
Wonderful.
Who do you think is in this picture, Elsa?
Okay. Don't have any information about this photograph other than it was in my father-in-law's basement? So it is, I'm assuming that it is family or ancestors of my husband, and most likely from Ohio.
Okay. So as I was saying, I don't know if you heard me, this is a composite of 2 different pictures.
I thought it might be, I wasn't sure.
Right. So the woman, what we know about her is she has the tiny Peter Pan collar of the 1860s. She's very distinctive looking. She has very large cheekbones. She would stand out in other pictures later in life. She also has what appears to be very light blue eyes. And we know that based on the way they look ghostly in this picture, except for the middle pupil. And then on the left, we have a guy with a chin beard and a different kind of suit. His tie is wrapped around his neck in the style of maybe the late 1850s, early 1860s. So it's possible even that this is a husband and a wife, but her photograph dates from one period and his photograph dates from another.
Does she look older than him, do you think?
It looks like she is doing, it's hard to say if that's a wrinkle on her forehead or if that's just a line in the paper print. What I will tell you is that these crayon sketches are very, very fragile, and that if this is an important image to you, that consulting a photographic conservator to stabilize this and to support it on acid and lignin-free cardstock would be a great investment. Otherwise, this will continue to chip and break until it's not around anymore.
Okay.
What do you have anyone that this could be? Like, say this is, and then again, there's two dates for this, right? There's the date when each of these 3 dates. There's a date when each of them had their photograph taken. Then there's the date when this photo studio put them together in this crayon sketch.
Wow. Okay,
Which complicates things.
Okay, yes. So I believe, my opinion is that it may be a younger version of the 2 people in the other photographs that I sent you. And the 2 other photographs, I believe, would be from around, let's say, 1900, and I do know who they are. They are my husband's great-great-grandparents, and I know, quite a few facts about them. So I just was trying to get your opinion of whether you think that they may be the same people.
I can't look at those other pictures right now, unfortunately. Does she have, I had a little trouble opening some of the attachments in some of these emails as I went back to do it again today. Does the woman in the 1900 picture have these outstanding cheekbones?
I believe so. I mean, to me, it looks like it could be the same person. And the thing is that, like, the picture that you're looking at, it does look like she's rather painted on. So it's not, I don't know that it's a very, very accurate picture of her. But I do believe that it could be, very well could be the same person.
So what I'll do is when we're off this call, I'll take another look at it when I'm done. And I'll email you. I have your email address, and I'll tell you whether or not I think they compare.
Great.
As long as I can get it open. If not, I'll let you know that I can't get it open.
Okay. Well, do you think that the photograph that you are looking at now seems consistent with a farming couple? Because
Sure.
I know that it does.
Sure.
Okay.
These are simple folk again.
Okay.
I love his beard. That's called the shovel. Each beard had its own style, and you could go in and say, I want my beard trimmed in the shape of the shovel.
Oh, wow.
It's pretty funny to see it just there at the end of the chin.
Yeah.
Thank you, Elsa.
Thank you so much, Maureen. Thank you.
Florence Clark. Is Florence Clark on the line?
It's going to be Jennifer Clark.
Jennifer Clark.
Yes, I'm here. Thank you,
Hi,
Maureen.
Jennifer.
Hi. I
So-
sent. Oh, sorry,
Yep.
go on.
Go ahead.
I sent in these pictures because I was told my great-grandfather, Bernard Emling, he was born in 1889 and died in 1971, played minor league baseball. But I don't know the team or really anything more than he played. And I found these pictures in a photo album I was given a couple of years ago from my grandmother's house, and I'm guessing this might be the team. So I'd like to see what, if anything, you can tell me about the picture, just so this might be a starting point so I can figure out what is the name of the team is.
Right. In the email that I got, it said the team may be the Columbus Cubs of the Interstate League.
Yeah, that was the only team. I did the power of Google, and the only team that I found that had an Emling around that time frame was the Columbus Cubs. So I was thinking that might be them, but I don't know for sure.
Okay. Well, I have a couple of comments about these. Obviously, these are snapshots all taken on the same day, and you sent in 2 attachments, 2 different collections of photographs. We know that they were playing in Detroit in 1914. So if you haven't done it already, I would look at the newspaper, the Detroit paper for 1914, and see if, for the summer, and see if they have any sort of baseball league that came into town to play.
Okay.
And then I love the photo corners. Well, the women's magazines ran articles on how to create these really elaborate little photo corners in different shapes. And so this is a shape I hadn't seen before, with the little triangle and the little things sticking up. That's pretty cool. You might also, baseball has avid fans. Especially historical baseball. And if you haven't already contacted the Cooperstown Museum, it would be worth reaching out to them as well in Cooperstown, New York. That is the baseball museum. But there could be someone who has written a book. I didn't have a chance to Google that. There are lots of little books by like Images of America series on baseball teams. The baseball stuff, people who follow early baseball are really passionate about it. They could look at this and tell you exactly what team it is.
Oh, okay.
I've met some of them. I've had people weigh in on photographs in the past. And they're just completely focused on it. But I would start if I were you with the newspaper for Detroit in 1914, and I would just literally read the paper.
Okay, just look at the sports section and go from there.
Yep, go from there.
Thank you so much, Maureen.
You're welcome. James Park. Isn't it fun to see everybody else's photographs? That's the best part.
I'm here.
Hi. So you've done a lot of work on this photograph, James.
Do all of it. I have. It's a family heirloom. It's been passed around amongst family members for years and years. It shows up. Actually, it shows up in a genealogical history book of San Saba County, Texas, which is where it originated. I don't have any way to tell who took it, and nobody that I know of has an original. These are copies that have been handed around. They're amazingly good, as far as I can see, for being copies. And all the people in the picture, if you can follow through down there, are listed below. In the center, sitting on the porch there, are W.W. Milliken and his wife, Mary Frances Brazil Milliken. And then all the people in the photo are their children, or the spouses of their children, or their grandchildren. This photo was taken presumably at their residence, which was out in the wilderness in San Saba County, Texas, in the hill country, in the rocky, rough, thorn-ridden land. These people were all farmers. The men were farmers and stockmen. They raised livestock and farmed. And of course, the women were their wives. It's obvious that there was some dressing up done for this photo because none of them would have been wearing these clothes in their daily lives. There are 3 very small children, babies actually, and the one sitting on the chair with a bow in her hair is my aunt. Her name is
this one
Lenny.
right here, if you can see my pointer.
Right. Her name is Lenny Lou Parks, and behind her are her parents, Tom Parks, and his wife and her mother, Bobby Milliken. She is the daughter of the Milliken family, W.W. and Mary Frances. And my grandfather, they're my grandparents. My grandfather, you cannot really quite make it out in the picture very well, but he had one tremendous mustache.
This guy right here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I never knew him to have a mustache. He was rid of that before I ever knew him. But that was quite a mustache. And as I say, I don't know who took the picture based on these babies. I'm guessing that it was taken around 1900. My aunt, as I said, Lenny Lou here, was born in 1900, early in 1900, so it would have been 1900 or 1901, I think, when the picture was taken.
So I have a couple of questions for you.
All right.
So who's the baby right here on this man's lap?
That man is Bill Milliken, William Jesse, who is the eldest son of W.W. and Mary Frances, and this baby is his 5th daughter, sitting over here to the left. Huh?
Born when?
Born in around 1900, 1901. I forget exactly the date, but I have it. And these 4 little girls sitting over here are his 4 daughters.
Over here, 1, 2, 3,
yes.
4.
And this is the 5th daughter.
Mom is back here?
No, Mom. Mom is not in the photo. I don't know where she was that day. Maybe, I don't know. But obviously they all got dressed up. My grandfather is wearing a tie, a suit and tie, which I never saw him wear except on Sunday when he went to church. So there was quite a bit of an investment to get ready for this photo. And I don't know how many shots they took, but whoever did it did a fine job.
Okay, so I have a few comments about this photo.
Okay,
one, you start left to right with Miles Milliken over here on the left.
That's he, yes.
Right. Who are the 2 women hidden in the shadows of the porch?
That's my question.
Okay.
Nobody knows. Nobody knows.
So here's what we do know, though. What you know is that this is a big family gathering, descendants of these 2 people. And in big family group portraits, the eldest members of the family are usually seated in the middle. Now, I will say that I have never, ever seen fabric like the fabric of this dress, like ever.
Oh, really?
This is something. It's bold and bright. And you can see there's a few other things that stand out. Well, we've got chicken wire over here off the porch. Somebody makes a quilt. Does anybody in the family still have that quilt?
No, not that I know of.
And the reason I thought this woman back here, if you can see my pointer, was the mother of the baby is because of what she's wearing. She is wearing something called a Mother Hubbard, which is the type of dress you would wear if you were if you just had a baby.
Okay.
It makes it easy to feed the baby and things like that. She also appears to have something on her shoulder, almost like a burping.
Yeah, I noticed that, a towel or something over it.
Right.
I think,
so what I want to recommend to you is to figure out the people that are over, the two women that are over here under the porch would be, if this was taken in about 1900 and you think you know who everyone is, what I recommend is you do a chart, and you do a chart by family grouping. So like each son with his wife and all of his children, you list them all on the left-hand side of the chart. And then next to them, you put 1900 and how old everyone was in that year. And then compare it to this photograph. Now, I think you're almost all the way there, but you're missing two people. And doing a chart of everyone might actually help you figure out who those two people are.
Actually, I have done that.
Okay.
And have laid out in some detail on a spreadsheet, who is here and who's married to whom and who the children belong to. I thought I might discover a child that's a family member that is not labeled in the photo. The difficulty is, why are they standing over there in the shadows?
They just maybe don't want to be in the picture.
Maybe not, or I thought they must, maybe they're not family members for some reason or other and just happen to be there.
It's possible, but the time frame that you've assigned to this fits with all the clothing clues. So 1900, 1901 is not a bad idea. So thank you so much.
Good.
Thank you.
Okay, it's my pleasure. I've enjoyed this picture a lot over the years.
I enjoyed looking at it as well. This is Kitty Olson. Is Kitty here?
Yes, I am.
So just briefly tell us what you know about this picture.
Okay, I was trying to date this picture because my sister actually inherited this photo when our maternal grandmother died in 1996. I think this photo may be of my grandmother's grandparents, Stephen and Martha Bowen. When Stephen Bowen died in 1928, Martha went to live with her eldest daughter, my grandmother's mother, and she continued to live with her until her death in 1939. And my grandmother was also living in the same city as her grandmother and her mother. Right. So I'm thinking she inherited this photo. So, but I don't really have a time period for the photo, and it's a very large photo, about 16 by 24. And it's deteriorating pretty rapidly. And I have put it on Ancestry, hooked with my tree, to try to see if I could get other, but no one has been able to date the photo or know who these two individuals are.
Okay. So this is another one of those crayon portraits. It appears to, again, be a composite of two different pictures brought together to make this type of picture suitable for hanging. They're always huge. They're always fragile. I have one that I need to do something with. And getting it properly conserved is definitely, once you can identify them and figure out who they might be something you want to consider. So here's what's going on in this picture. We know it's two different images brought together. And we know now, of course, like I said before, we have a couple of different dates. We have the dates at which the pictures were taken, and then we have the date at which this crayon portrait was created. And there was some fixing of images a little bit, but these two individuals look very young. They look like they're in their 20s rather than Stephen and Martha, who in about late 1890s would be in their 30s. So, I mean, it's possible. This looks like the mid 1890s to about 1900 for a date on this picture.
Yeah, they were actually married in about 1878. So,
yeah.
And And so it didn't really look like a wedding photo, but I
Well, these
wasn't sure.
crayon, right, it's not from 1878, definitely not. Their clothing does not agree with the 1878 date. It's particularly her clothing with the big sleeves that are pretty typical for the 1890s. Now, of course, one of the other things that happened, even though her hair doesn't look the period either. So you have to sort of deconstruct these. We know it's two images brought together as a composite. We know that she appears to be wearing a dress with big sleeves. Now, sometimes these photo studios did it the cheap and dirty way, where they actually had most of it already filled in and they just put a head on each body. Right, which doesn't help us at all. So we're going to assume that this couple had their picture taken, especially her, in the mid to late 1890s, that they're young. How young is the question, because in 1900, Stephen and Martha would be 39 and 40. To me, they look younger than that. Now, is that enhanced by the photographer? And if it is not enhanced by the photographer, they got married in 1878. Did they have any children?
Yes, by 1878, their first child was born in 1880.
Right. So, and who is that, a boy or a girl?
That's my great grandmother that we think this picture came from, which this picture did come from. We just don't know who it is.
But does this woman look like her in any way?
Vaguely.
Vaguely.
She's not, I actually have my great grandparents' wedding photo, and they're much, much younger looking than this photo. So that's why I was pretty sure it was not a wedding photo.
No, it's not a wedding photo, probably not. But this is pretty typical for a couple to get married and then make one of these and put it on the wall of their house. One of the things the photographer has done here is colored her eyes with a very light charcoal. So this woman looks like, compared to his eyes, looks like she might have had blue or green eyes.
Okay.
If that helps at all. And she has a square face. So this may still be a mystery for a little while because we just don't know. We need to find other pictures of Stephen and Martha for comparison. Now, they don't die until the early 20th, a third of the way through the 20th century. So if you had any other pictures of them, I would compare them. So if Martha in her other pictures doesn't have blue or green eyes, you can cancel her right out.
Okay, that helps. Thank you.
Yeah. Phyllis? Oops. Is Phyllis on the line?
Yes, I'm here.
So Phyllis, these are fabulous. Everybody's photos are fabulous.
Thank you. Let me tell you, want me to tell you what I had asked you to look at?
Yep.
Again, the one at the family portrait at the top, I know 1892 in Tuttlingen, or I always say it incorrectly. It's from Germany, of my great-great-grandfather and the 3 children who did not come to America. Okay, so I know the time on that. And the couple picture, which you've told me a lot about just this morning of the other pictures that we have, I just have no idea who they are. And it was in a aunt's closet, a great aunt's closet. And I'm the person who takes all the old pictures. And so I've had it in my cedar chest since 1995 when she died. And she had it years before then. So I guess what I really wanted to know was, could you tell anything? This is not something, because it's so large, I'm assuming this is not anything that my great-grandmother would have brought with her from Germany. So that is kind of what I thought. And then seeing the 2 beards, that's what I wondered, if it could be the same gentleman in both pictures, if there's any way you could tell.
I actually do think it's quite possible they're the same person. So there's a few ways to compare that. Beard patterns grow in a particular way, unique to each man.
All right.
And this man likes to have his beard trimmed this particular way, exactly like the guy in the photograph from Germany. He even has the same hair pattern. It looks like he even has the same ears. I love the German photograph because it is uniquely German. You can tell that from the props, the little stools, the glass top table. I don't know what these things are in the front, sort of fake flower. The column is very elaborate, not in the United States. Again, since I've mentioned this a couple of times this morning, this is a crayon portrait of likely a husband and a wife. And just like the one before that, this woman's eyes are colored to give the impression that she has blue eyes. I would put this portrait in the 1880s. And then, so you've got this guy about 10 years later sitting around the table with all the children.
Okay. Because she didn't die until 1883.
I didn't know that.
Okay, so that is when she was dead by then, and then it's the other portrait is 18, like you said, 1892.
Yeah, thank goodness.
I'm so excited. Thank you.
Yeah, he's a very handsome guy. Gets more handsome as he gets older.
Thank you.
Randy Pace, are you on the call?
Yes, I'm here.
So this is a very curious looking photograph, right?
Yes, it's my pride and joy.
I would think so.
It was given to me by a great uncle, and he got it from his mother, my great grandmother. And thank goodness she had written on the back of the photo that this is my mother and her mother, my grandmother. You know, really specific, but it told me a lot. So I know it's Hannah Young Owsley.
On the
Clark
left.
is on the left, and her daughter, her youngest daughter, who was born in 1849. And I know that the woman on the left passed away in November of 1864. And then her daughter on the right would be, I assume, about 14, 15. She married in 1868, so it was prior to her wedding. And it's curious that she had this photograph with her mother because, you know, there's 6 other children. And it was just curious why she decided to have a picture made of her youngest daughter, maybe before her marriage. But, you know, they were wealthy people. I think you can tell that from their dress. And I think it was taken in Clinton, Missouri, or Warrensburg, Missouri, were the largest towns from their farm. And again, you know, she passed away in November of 1864. So now I sent you the copy because I didn't have the original with me at the time. I was in Pennsylvania, and the original is paper glued on. The circle is about 10 inches square, and it's glued onto a heavy paper board.
Is there anything on the back?
What's that?
Is there anything on the back?
No, there was nothing on the back except what my great grandmother wrote. And it was broken in half, you know, from wear. And so I had it dry mounted at a studio and then made a copy. I could show you the original if you like through the camera, where you can see actually it's a sepia. And so anyway, I'm pretty lucky to know who they are, and certainly it had to be prior to November of 1864.
So let me try to address some of your questions. Let me talk about what I see in the photograph and then address your questions.
Okay.
So you want this to be Hannah and her daughter in this picture. Hannah being born in 1806, Ruth being born in 1847.
Yes.
So let's start with Hannah. So Hannah has the day cap of the Hannah is dressed like the 1850s. except she
Okay.
has a little Peter Pan collar, more like the early 60s. But that little short little cape that she has over her shoulders is very much the style of the 1850s. I wish we could see more of what's under there. It could be that it's just her favorite cape. She is extraordinarily thin, suggesting that she is not very well. She is wearing fingerless gloves, mitts, which are formal. She's dressed up a little bit, so maybe the cape is her, dress up part of her attire. The fingerless gloves is part of that. And then her daughter is wearing the belted dress, the belt around her natural waist, which really appears in the very early part of the 1860s. So this isn't anywhere close to her daughter's wedding date. And you asked, why would she have posed with her younger daughter? Well, sometimes parents have a different relationship with different kids, and it's not unusual to see a parent who poses with the oldest kid or the youngest kid. It's the ones in the middle that sort of get left out. So the belted dress with that collar, the little beads around her neck, everything points to being about 1860, 61, somewhere in there. So you said she dies in 64. We don't know how current their styles are by 64, but I can tell you that Hannah is wearing articles of clothing that date from the 1850s. What else?
She didn't have the latest fashions.
She did not have the latest fashion, but it could be that this was what she was comfortable in.
Yeah.
It could be, since this is the period when women are making their clothing, that she is just not well enough to make herself newer clothing. Do you know what she dies from?
No, she's just probably old age, 1864. She's born in 1801, actually.
Well, there's the question. If she's born in 1806 and this is 1860, she would be 54 years old.
Yes.
Right. She's young looking for 54.
Well, and her daughter too was born in 1849. So
47, right?
well, actually it was 49. I was doing that from memory.
You're off by 2 years.
Yes.
So 1849, then this is much closer to the day that she died then, in 64.
Is it particular that a child is on the left or the right? Does that mean anything?
No,
Okay.
generally the parent is on the left, but there are people break the, photography studios broke the rules all the time. And the daughter's dressed quite nicely. She's got a nice cotton print dress on, pretty typical for the 1860s. I like her pearled belt though. That is unusual. That style of belt.
And she's wearing a looks like black pearl necklace too.
Yep, she could be little jet beads or something. She could be.
Okay, well, thank you.
Thank you. Sarita, this is actually a submission, I think, from the Shelby County Historical Society Museum and Library. Is Sarita here?
I have not found her.
Okay, well, that's fine. What we know, again, this is a crayon portrait, because maybe she'll watch this later. It's from the early 20th century based on the hairstyle, the neckline of that dress, the high neckline. It is, again, a composite of a man and a woman. I've never seen so many composites in a presentation before. And the woman is wearing a flower on her shoulder. It could be a graduation. It could be a wedding. She thought it might be George Franklin Bright and Margaret Ann DeFriend, who were married in June 14th, 1903. And that is quite possible. That's quite possible. Susan Moyer.
Yes, I'm here.
Susan, great that you even have the envelope that it was mailed in.
Yes.
That's
Yes.
lucky. What do you want to tell us about this?
Well, this was in my maternal grandmother's possession, and it's addressed to my grandmother's grandmother. Wilhelmina Larkin was my grandmother's grandmother. And my question is, this photo seems to have the photographer that's in Italy and the family. Wilhelmina's maiden name was Bodmer, and they were from Switzerland. And my question is, could this be a relative that stayed back in Europe when the family immigrated? Was it very common just to mail a photograph like this?
So yes, to all of that. So this is an 1880s image on the left. It fits with the time period of the envelope and the mailing of it. She is a much older woman. So where is Wilhelmina Larkin Bodmer's mother in all of this?
Well, I don't know. I have this wonderful red velvet photo album that belonged to Wilhelmina, and it has a picture of Wilhelmina as well as her husband Charles Larkin with their names handwritten under it.
Right.
But it has Wilhelmina's father, I believe, but we don't know. I don't know a picture of her mother. The mother died in 1884. And we don't know. I assume Ohio, because all the children were born in Ohio.
Oh, how interesting.
So I don't know if it's maybe a picture that someone in Europe had and was mailing it to Wilhelmina as a remembrance of her mother, or whether it was a grandmother or some other relative.
Well, right. That's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking there's a reason this is sent to Wilhelmina. It is typical 1880s attire for an older woman, that little cap on her head. Her lace shawl is quite beautiful. It could be a dark color. And then it's taken in Perugia, which, you know, in Europe, there's a lot more fluidity with traveling, right? So people could travel. They could take the train from one point to another.
Right.
And families did keep in touch by sending photographs back and forth.
Okay.
So one of the people I interviewed for my podcast is a guy down in Chile, and his family is actually from Italy in the 1870s, and they exchanged photographs from the time the family immigrated in the 1870s all the way to the 1930s.
Wow.
He has this cache of photographs that went back and forth. And then the family lost touch. And now through DNA, he's been in touch with the family again. And so he has photographs of them and they have photographs of him, like his family. So there's this amazing thing that can happen with photographs, sending them back and forth. You know that this is taken in 1884. The photograph of this woman is from the same time period. The question is, she is quite elderly. Who is she? And I would imagine that she is somehow closely related with Wilhelmina, and someone who did not obviously immigrate. So her aunt, perhaps? You'd have to do some research to see Wilhelmina's mother's family or father's family and who stayed behind and who immigrated.
Well, that's why this is so interesting to me, because
it's so
on the census, the family, the parents say they were born in Switzerland, but that's as far as I can get. You know, finding them in Switzerland, that's my next brick wall.
Yeah, that's the next thing you have to do, because you have this woman, and if let's say she's 65, and this is let's just do 1885 just to make the math easy. So it's say she's 65, and she could be older than 65 by a lot. She would be born somewhere around 1820, which would definitely put her in that generation of either Wilhelmina's mother or grandmother.
Okay. Well, I think her mother was born 1832 from any records that we can find.
So this could be her grandmother.
It could be. And she looks somewhat like a photo. I have a photo that I believe is Wilhelmina's mother. I'm not sure, but she looks similar.
Mm-hmm. So this could be the grandmother if
It
she's
could
still
be.
alive in 1884.
It could be.
Yeah. Well, this is exciting.
Yes, yes.
We got a mystery to solve. And I love the fact that you have the envelope. I mean, who keeps the envelope?
Exactly. Well, my family, obviously.
Right.
Oh, gosh. Yes. Yes.
Right. All right. So then Catherine Hill, we just have a couple more images. Catherine, is Catherine in the house?
Oh, yes.
Hi, how are you?
I'm fine. I'm enjoying the program.
Yeah, it's fun to look and see what other people have in their closet.
It sure is. It sure is. I wish I'd done a little more research before the program.
That's all right. So you didn't actually send any information with this picture, but who owned it or what do you know about it?
My grandmother owned it, and really my great grandmother owned it. And I think it was taken in Selma, and I wasn't sure what year. I figured around 1870, but I'm not real sure.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm not sure about those initials on the back of it.
We got an E.
They got an E, and I don't know. I have a whole bunch of Bowie relatives that this could be, but I don't know of any with an E.
We got an E. Sue Kaufman might be able to read the middle one, but it looks like a B on the end. ECB, maybe.
Yeah, E. I wondered what that middle one was, and
I think it might be C. It's possible. And so this guy is young. He's like 13, 14. What we know is that people matured later in the 19th century than they do today.
Yeah.
Yeah, not surprising with all the chemicals we have in the water. And this guy, this pattern on the back with that sort of decorative circle and the way the photography studio is, this is an 1860s image.
Okay.
Now, this is Alabama. So there's something that comes into play with Alabama.
Okay.
This could be the early 1860s with that string tie that he's wearing.
Oh.
Now, the thing that's interesting about Alabama is once the Civil War starts, there's a Union blockade of all the ports. And so there's no photography except the pictures taken by Northern photographers who come down with their equipment and supplies. The blockade makes it impossible for Southern photographers to get what they need. So that means that this predates the Civil War.
Oh, yeah. I think if I'm read right, this photographer was originally from Nova Scotia and then ended up in Baltimore and was in Selma for a little while taking pictures.
Mm-hmm.
So I wondered if it
so you're looking for ECB.
ECB.
Young guy, maybe born about 1849, 48 in there, taken somewhere around 1860, 61.
Okay.
I don't know. Does that add up to what you know about this photographer in Selma?
Yeah. Yeah, I was thinking about some relatives that were born around 1845.
Yeah.
But if so, they got the wrong initials on it.
That's possible.
So I really thought that this was George Milhouse Bowie, who was born in 1844 in Dallas County, Alabama, and died in Texas in 1863 during the beginning of the war. I thought that's what I thought, but
you got to find more pictures.
I got to find more pictures. And then his brother that was born in 1845, I sent through the website a picture of that man when he was a little bit older.
Okay, I didn't see that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't see that one in the attachment. So.
and then I see those initials. Should that definitely be the initials of this young man, or could it have been the initials of who they were giving it to?
Either.
That's what I was thinking.
Either. And so this doesn't have to be a family member. This could be a friend.
Right.
You know, if they're in school together, then they would have, there was a lot of exchanging of pictures as friendship tokens.
Well,
so it could
I
be
meant,
either.
could those initials, could they be the initials of a friend that was receiving it?
Yes.
Yeah. So it's not necessarily the initials of the person in the picture.
Right.
Okay. So I'll keep working on that. But you think this could be early 1860s as far as the photograph?
Yeah, it has to be before 60. It has to be before 61.
Yeah. Okay.
It could be 61, but then after that, there's the blockade.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, some of them were getting up to Selma somehow, but I'd have to look a little more into that.
Okay.
All right. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Barbara Fulton, is Barbara Fulton in the house? Do we have Barbara? Susan?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh,
yes.
Hi, Barbara. How are you? So you submitted 2 pictures, one of Matilda Ann Hatfield White's daughter as a comparison to a family resemblance. Anything else you want to tell me about these 2 pictures?
Well, I know who this people are in these pictures. It's the one that I submitted that was, I guess it's a color portrait that we have no idea if it's a male or a female. And
I only have a Gmail with 2 attachments. I don't have the 3rd one.
I'm sorry. I really, I know who this is. We had one with, it's a mystery person. We can't tell if it's a male or a female. And
so why don't you directly email that to me at photodetective@maureentaylor.com.
Okay. Do you want?
Did you send 2 separate emails?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, maybe that's it. Maybe I didn't see the second one.
One was for comparison to the mystery person. We can't tell if it's a male or female, and the clothing is very plain.
Yeah.
And
well, I'll tell you what. Let me finish the presentation, and then I'll go see if I can find it in my email.
Thank you.
I apologize. I did not see the second email. There were many submissions.
Yes, I understand.
Yes, many. So I chose these 2. I don't remember the other one though, but I'll go back and look. So this is, can you tell us about these 2 while we have you on the line?
This is the same lady.
Yep.
Her name is Era Amy White, and that is her her oldest child, who was born in 1909, that she's holding. And of course, they did a lot of outdoor photography, so she was sitting inside their house. This is in Texas. The picture on the right is of her just a little bit younger, I assume.
Exactly.
And
absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Barbara. I will look for your image. I'm putting a note to myself right here to look that up. If not today, then first thing Monday. But I want to thank everyone for sending in their photographs. If you need help with identifying or organizing or preserving your family photographs, this is what I do. I'm quite passionate about pictures. I've built my entire career around working with photographs. If you have other photographs that are in need of some information, I do offer consultation services through my website. You can see those on maureentaylor.com. I have a couple of links that I sent to one of the organizers to share with you. If you can put those in the chat, that would be great. Whoever got them, 'cause I don't think I can do that. Well, maybe I can. I can't push it out, but maybe I can copy them. One of the links is, let's see, can I do this? No, I'm disabled, I think. If you could, nope. If you could share that, here we go, organizers and panelists only. No, I'm not allowed to share them. If
Maureen?
Susan, you could share those two links that I submitted, that would be awesome. I have a special offer for all of you. I'm not there selling my books like I usually would be if I were in person. So I've bundled together 3 of my courses for a very special price. Instead of $229, these 3 courses are offered for $99. I did supply a link to the organizers. It is also available on my website. The digital photo organizing is a 3-part masterclass on organizing your digital photographs, and that's everything you've scanned to what you've accumulated. Identifying family photos is a 9-lesson video course. Some of my students write to me afterwards and say that it really helps them figure out who's in their pictures. And then as far as taking care of the real stuff, I have a course called Essential Photo Organizing. All of these come with handouts. Identifying comes with a workbook and a resource guide, and the price is $99 rather than $229, which is a 57% discount. The other link that has now been shared with you is a sign up for my newsletter. If you do that by clicking that second link, you get to download an extra handout from today. So I want to thank you all very much for having me this afternoon. I love the Photo Detective Roadshow because I love seeing what you have. And everybody's photos are just a little bit different, and it's pretty exciting even for me, and I look at pictures every single day. Does anybody else, do we have any other questions in the chat for me or anything, Susan? Does there anybody else have a question? No?
This is Sandra. Yes, there are some questions in the,
All
there are
right,
a few questions in the chat. There's lots of thank yous. There's one who says they have several photographs that were printed on postcards, and they wondered if there's a certain time period when these were created. The time frame for the pictures they have is likely around 1890s or 1900s of families who lived in Upper Peninsula of Michigan.
Well, I can definitely tell them that if it is a photo postcard, then it was taken after 1900, because photo postcards, not the chromolithographed ones, but photo postcards weren't available until 1900. I'm actually doing a little thing for My Heritage at the end of December, just a sort of quick thing on Instagram on photo postcards. So I hope you'll check it out. I hope you sign up for my newsletter so you get to hear about when I'm going to be talking about postcards in general. I'm even going to show a postcard camera.
Oh, good. We have another one. If you have a photograph, I think we'd all like this one. If you have a photograph with X person identified, and you have another photo where you believe X person may be present, is there a photo recognition software to help you match the photos for agreement?
Alas, the best photo program on the market, the man who developed it died last fall. And so he developed it with a partner, and I've been emailing them all year long trying to get the program back up online. But right now there isn't. If you use a photo organizing package like the Memory Web package, in order for their photo recognition to really kick in, you need 3 or more photographs of the same person.
Okay.
So it's tough. I mean, basically compare all the points in the face from nose to mouth to ears, even the distance between the eyes. You know, look at all the details to see if they might be the same and blow them up side by side. That's how I do it.
Okay. What if someone wore older clothing in a photo that they already had that wasn't new? Could that affect the dating of a photograph?
Absolutely. So my great grandmother, I have a snapshot of her standing with her family. And if she were standing alone, she is wearing a dress from about 1900, and the picture was taken about 1916. But the reason I know it's later than 1900 is because she's standing with everybody else and there's a border to the snapshot. So it can throw it. You have to look at all the different features of it, like the photographer and the cardstock and all of that.
Okay. On these chalky crayon photos, were they common or were they only used if someone had already passed away or was not available for the photo?
No, they were extremely common. They start being common in about 1860, and they have different styles of them into the early 20th century. And then there are other photographs that take their place, like the ones that are on convex glass and things like that.
Okay. And the last one is, what is the best way to ID features to compare for saying the same person in a different photo? For example, the way you talked about the way he cut his beard. What are
Right.
some of the other things that you would look at?
Yeah, I definitely look at the shape of the ears. That is as unique as a fingerprint. I look at the eyes and eye color. I look at the hairline, especially for women. The balding pattern for men. And then again, you're looking at a person's face very critically. Every single detail, shape of the nose, the shape of the nostrils, the shape of the eyes, the placement of the eyes. Do they have heavy eyebrows? Do they have thin eyebrows? Do they have an eyebrow that goes up? I mean, you're looking at everything. You're really taking that face apart to see if they're the same.
And I did have one more quick one that just came in, and I know I'm going to mispronounce these words. Can you explain the differences between daguerreotypes, ambrotypes, and tintypes?
Sure, absolutely, and you pronounce them perfectly. So a daguerreotype is shiny and reflective. It's a polished silver plate. It's a silver-coated copper plate. And they date from, you can actually see yourself in them like a mirror. An ambrotype is on glass, and it's a negative unless it's backed with something dark. And then tintype is the same chemicals as an ambrotype, but it is going to be on an iron plate, even though it's called a tintype. And I will tell you all that if you listen to my podcast, I don't know if you're into podcasting or not, but the month of February, I'm already interviewing people, and the focus of February will be tintypes. And I have a modern tintype artist who uses an 1850s camera. How cool is that? To collectors and dealers and things like that. It's going to be a really fun month. I'm interviewing those people right now. If you want to take advantage of the Tackle Your Photos bundle, it is only available until tomorrow night, and then I take it down. But I hope you get on my mailing list to keep up with what I'm doing, and to, you know, if you want to communicate with me, there's a little help box that pops up when you go to MaureenTaylor.com. Those come right to me.
Great. And only one question about the daguerreotype is, what age is it?
1839 to about 1865.
Okay, great. Well, lots of thank yous coming in. Lots of us, I think, ready to go back and look at our pictures in a different way and see if we can find out a few more things that we didn't know we were missing, but we can find now in those pictures. So thanks so much for your time today.
Thank you.
Maureen, it was a great presentation, by the way.
Thank you.
It was really interesting, and it was great that everybody participated in, sending in slides. That was really super wonderful. Also, I mean, pictures. That was really super wonderful. Also, so we do thank everyone for participating, and I learned a lot. Some of those pictures were a hoot.
Yes.
Yeah, that shovel beard was pretty interesting. It looks like almost. Some of you might know Michael John Neal. I can't wait to tell him that. But
yeah,
anyway.
yeah, the spade. Yeah, the shovel, the spade.
Spade, yeah,
all has
yeah.
different names. I have this chart that I found online where it names all the different beard styles. You go in and you say, I want the spade. So
right.
Funny.
Right. So, well,
all right,
thank you so much.